Welcome to Sober.Coffee, a weekly coffee chat sharing experience, strength, and hope for anyone on the sober road to recovery. You can download Sober.Coffee weekly on all podcast platforms and check us out on Instagram at Sober.Coffee Podcast and on Twitter at Sober.Coffee Pod. To learn more about us and to help support these sessions, visit online at Sober.Coffee. Here are your hosts, two guys on their own path to recovery, Mike and Glenn. Let's join them at the coffee shop.
You can't stop you can't stop yourself. No. Are you with me?
I'm totally with it. I'll tell you, I got tears coming out of my eyes. The shit that goes on in this studio sometimes before we jump on, man. I'm telling you, Brian, we should have a hot mic or something.
A hot mic for hot mic.
Oh, we have a hot mic for sure.
So
I don't even know where to start.
Well, we'll call it what it is. I'm the king of content.
KOC, right?
King of content.
Look at Brian. Brian's shameful. No, you are the king of content, and I'll tell you, man. There's so many people out there just seeking and searching, and we were just chatting a little bit about our contract here. We're up. Well, I mean, you were jumping the gun, but our contract up at the end of March of 25. And
just so everybody knows, there's really no contract, but yet every year I threaten to demand blue M&Ms in the studio.
So this whole thing, I think probably most people know by now how this got started. It was during COVID, right? And people had no connection. And
it was terrible.
Do you remember when they shut down the meetings and I brought up my business conference call line?
Yeah, and remember we dialed in.
90% of the people had no idea how to use a
we're like,
conference call
okay,
line.
here we go.
Beep one to mute yourself, and there's dogs in the background. Oh man, what a zoo! And then we went to Zoom, but then we sat down for dinner, and I'm like, Mikey, man, what? I have an idea, and I'm like, what if we do a podcast, right? And off we started, and we're like, okay, we'll do.
Do you know at that time I had never listened to a podcast in my life?
I think I forgot that. That's awesome.
I had never listened to a podcast.
So basically,
I knew they were out there.
So you signed up for something you knew nothing about.
No clue.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And here we are, 200 some episodes later, and almost 3.5 years, I guess. But we said, hey, let's start this podcast. So I go home, right, and I Googled, because that's the king of all information.
Absolutely.
KOI. And I'm like, how do you build a podcast studio, right? And it was so complicated. And, believe it or not, in 5th grade, I won the AV award for our school.
Right,
I was in charge of all the audio visual. That was then. This is now. And
so you came into this high tech.
Oh, well, high tech on a analog.
Yeah,
big plug-in cords, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm over my skis. And that's when I reached out and called Brian. And Brian, very rarely today you fill out all these web forms, nobody responds, right? And Brian had something, hey, connect and get a free podcast episode. I'm like, well, that can't be true. And he called me right back, and it was true. Brian, I don't think we ever got that free episode, but that's all right.
Wait, all of a sudden we're going to go to dead air.
So it's so funny. So this girl I know, just an amazing businesswoman, and she wants to start a podcast, right?
Yeah.
And so she's doing the Google, how do you set
build
up a
your
studio?
home studio?
And I told her, I said, don't be
do
a
it.
fool,
Don't do
man.
it.
I'm like, don't be a fool. Call Brian.
Yeah.
So we're going to keep going on.
Yeah.
It's just amazing, the people that we connect with. And if you're out there listening, drop some, I listen to podcasts and stuff. And they're like, oh, subscribe and drop a review.
Right. We're kind of in a funky little thing because you can't really review and hold on to your anonymity at the same time.
That is
right.
So, there are some people that use tag names like G.I. Joe out there, right, that aren't real, but most people use their real stuff when they sign up for stuff. And so it definitely is a jungle gym, but hey,
here's the thing though, and you really brought it home to me this morning, and that is that it's helping me. It's helping me with my sobriety. It's helping you with your sobriety, and that really hit home with me today because it's part of the solution.
Right. That is so sanitary.
Yeah.
From what was really said.
Yes.
What was really said was, Mikey,
don't fuck this up.
do you have an amazing life today?
Yes.
And you said yes. And I said, podcasting is one of the things you do to have an amazing life, that delivers that amazing life. And what I said was, why fuck it up?
Right.
Or as Brian, what's it, Brian? Fafo? Fuck around, find out.
That's
right?
right.
Why mess with it? Right? That's what, maybe that's a message. But I mean, hey.
I think it's a strong message. Whatever you do, I hear this in meetings, whatever I did yesterday, I'm going to do today. Because yesterday I stayed sober.
Right. And that's why, I just talked a couple weeks ago. I got invited to a panel of doctors. Sober
Usually
doctors.
You invited them, right?
No, I paid them.
Yes.
It's just what happened. But no, and it was on recovery. So I gave my little,
right, testimony.
No, I'm sorry. It was on relapse.
Okay.
So I gave my little relapse pitch. I outlined the 26 things I do a day, a week, a month, or a year to stay sober. The only thing I do once a year is go to that retreat. So,
right.
But, and I outlined it, and it's a good reminder, right, of the stuff that I do to really, stay sober. And you know what? I keep doing them.
Right.
Like the podcast is one of them. But I keep doing them because they work. And if I start saying, well, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do that, I'm not going to do that, I might find out really quick with the drink in my hand, oops,
yeah,
I cut back too much.
Right.
And I just can't take that chance.
No,
so
it's death.
fuck around and find out.
All right. Beautiful.
So hey, man, so I guess we're going on for another year, contract extension with the yellow M&Ms this year. You wanted blue last year?
Blue.
Oh, you want blue again?
I want blue again,
all
yeah.
Right.
You know why? Because it worked last year.
God, you're good. look at Brian. It worked.
It worked.
Don't mess with it, right?
All right, what do we got today?
I don't know. You wrote a number down, or
yeah.
I wrote a number down.
So we run in two circles. We run in our sobriety circle, really three. We run in our sobriety circle, we run in our business circle, and we run in our church group circle.
Right.
And in all of those circles, I've heard you reference this 85%. And, maybe I'm on the slow train, but I wanted to really, to use an overused word, I really want to unpack it today because you talk about the 15%, the 85%, and I think it's so spot on that I thought today we could just kind of unwrap it and give me a clearer understanding of how to appreciate the 85%.
All right. Fair enough. Okay, so God, I'm glad Jen doesn't listen to this because that's where I started the 85%. Right. So, well, let me take it back a step earlier. There's a dude in the room, Big Bill, really, really has helped me. And I say I hear voices in my head. I really do, and I hear his voice, weekly. There's not a week that goes by I don't hear his voice. And a message and a story. He was really struggling with his stepson years ago, right? And I mean, his stepson was doing some crazy stuff, right? But Bill's message to me, and when I say Big Bill, he's like 6'6". He's big.
Yeah,
right?
maybe 6'10". But go ahead.
Yeah, he's big. But his message to me, which was, Glenn, you can't change them. You can change me. Like I can change the way I look at him and the situation.
But you can't change him.
He will not change, right? So in my relationship with Jen, and this is where this started, but you can relate this to anything. There is 85%, right, about Jen that is absolutely adorable, perfect for me, stunning, cute, funny, intelligent, smart, engaging, right?
Maybe she ought listen to this.
Pardon? No, I've told her this.
Okay.
And that's fact, right, in my mind. Now, for people listening, right, for you or people listening, maybe it's 70-30, right? Maybe it's 90-10, right? I'm just saying, I'm throwing out a random statistic like I normally do. Is just, hey, A big number, a large percentage of Jen I absolutely love and adore and just amazing. And there is 15% that is just totally off course, off mark, whack job. Where in the world are you coming from? It makes zero sense, right? And like, for example, she's got a nice SUV, and she parks in a driveway so we can park a 10-year-old Volkswagen Tiguan, the kid's college car, in the garage. I mean, that makes that's part of the 15%.
It's a classic.
I'm like, oh my God, I didn't think of that. You're right. Right? But I'm like sitting there thinking, who does that? Right? Or when she goes in the garage and tries to rearrange my workbench.
Oh.
I mean, it just stuff, right? There's 15%. And what I have learned in business, with Jen, in relationships, is when I focus on the 85%, my life is amazing. I am in such a great headspace, right? When I focus on the 15%, first of all, here's the fuel for the 15%. Ego and selfishness. Two characteristics which I identified as character defects when I worked the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous that are not good for me. They are not good fuel. But that will fuel the 15%. And the minute where my ego or my selfishness, where I say, well, I deserve this. For example, I wake up every morning, I get Jen coffee, right? I do it most days. This morning she was up and left for the airport before me, and right, so she made her own coffee, right? And that's my way of serving. Now, the one or two times when Jen this morning, she got up and left, and she didn't make me a cup of coffee and leave it by my nightstand, right? So now, what I could do is focus on that 15%, right? Because what I could say is my ego and my selfishness, and say, wait a minute, you ungrateful woman. I make your coffee and put it by your nightstand or your sink in the morning 99% of the time. And the one time you get up before me, you're so self-absorbed, you can't make me a cup of coffee and take care of me like I take care of you 99% of the time, right? Now, it's funny because right now, literally, my head is starting to fire off, right? Because I'm focused on that. I'm like, I would think I deserve, why don't you think about me? What about me, right? And you're not serving me, but I serve you, and I can't think of a time she ever made me a cup of coffee, right? So I'm starting to get fired up, right? Because I'm the man, right? That's ego, right? And I'm selfish, right? Hey, why don't you serve me? I don't feel like making cup. I was tired this morning, right? Why don't you make me a cup of coffee, right? Now, so today, right now, as a matter of fact, in reality, do I want to focus on the 85%, all the great stuff about her, the great life I have with her, the amazing partner she is, or do I want to get ego and focus and say, I deserve that cup of coffee?
So how do you flip the switch? How do you go from, because your brain, as you suggested, and man, I can so relate to this, but your brain is, ego, selfish default. So how do you switch the default? At what point did this switch over for you? Because it sounds to me like it's a very conscious effort to pull this off.
So one thing one phrase that I use at work, it's funny. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Billions, but it's like a hedge fund deal making show on TV, right? And they're all type A personalities, drivers, egos, right? And so they have a psychologist on staff. Her name's Wendy, right? So they nickname me Wendy at work just because I have a way of navigating emotional intelligence. And, I'll tell you what, grateful for all the shit I've been through and all those therapy sessions and counseling sessions, PhD sessions, and right, because I learned how to navigate emotions and feelings, and I have tools, right? So one of my favorite lines that I use at work is alligators don't fly.
Okay.
Okay. Alligators certainly have their special attributes, right? They have, jaw strength, and they have, quick speed over short distances, and can swim powerful tails, and right, but they cannot fly. So, going back to what Big Bill was saying, it doesn't matter how much I want that alligator to fly. It doesn't matter how much I think it should fly, right? Or the benefit to me if that alligator would fly. That alligator will never, ever fly. So in situations with Jen, like right now, I've already calmed myself down, right? Because what I know is that's not Jen, right? And so my expecting that of Jen, I mean, I've even said to Jen a couple times, because I've been with her 10 years now. And, a couple times, like 2 or 3 times, I've said, hey, you know what? I would enjoy a cup of coffee just like you do every single morning, when it's convenient for you, Alligators don't fly. She still doesn't do it, right? So do I sit there and say, okay, do I create a big ego-driven, selfish-driven issue over it, or do I accept it?
So at what point do you flip that switch?
So I flipped it right now when I was talking to you.
Yeah.
The first thing I do in that exact situation is I am so aware of my 85-15 rule.
Okay.
I'm just so aware of it, and I'm so aware there's not a day that goes by I don't think of 85-15, and I don't think of alligators don't fly. Right? And it's expectations.
It's right.
Right? And it's accepting that some people are not going to meet my selfish, ego-driven expectations. So I have a high level of awareness where I'm at, self-awareness. So what I say is, like even right now, I'm laughing about it already, but I was getting fired up. Right? Because I like a cup of coffee too, and I like to be treated special too. Right? But she treats me special in other ways, right? Her love language is not coffee.
Right.
Her love language is making sure we have a kick-ass, beautiful, clean house, right? And everything's set up and everything's taken care of. Her love language is, hey, let's have events and trips and let's have engaging moments together, right? And time together. So do I get pissed off or do I say, hey, let me focus on her 85%, and I'm okay with 15%, not loving 15%. I'm okay with that, right? I just need to realize the expectations. Alligators don't fly. It doesn't matter how many times I ask her. She's not going to make me coffee.
Right.
Now, if I said to her, if I was in the middle of doing something, she's a strong, independent woman, right? But if I said to her, hey, the other day I was having one of my daggone sugar attacks, and she was on the couch watching TV, and I'm like, hey, can you do a couple things for me? She goes, absolutely, But so what? And if I could go back to another example, there's a guy in our church group, and I'm talking to him about this on a regular basis. Like 5 years ago or something, he started sharing situations about himself and his wife, right? And and so I'm helping. I'm trying to share my experience with him that she will never change. And if in life, if we expect people to change, now it's different as an employer, right? If I have an employee, I have a development program.
That's right. I mean, you could write them up. You could write them up. Try writing Jen up. Hey, Jen, you didn't make my coffee. You're getting a write-up in your permanent file.
Totally right, But Jen and I have check-ins, right? But what I've learned is the valuable things, throughout all this recovery process, got a pretty good education in emotional intelligence and what works and what doesn't and how people will change. And I mean, people don't change, right? Unless, footnote, unless they have enough motivation, which is greed, right? Or they have enough pain. Right now, Dr. John, we all know Dr. John, and Dr. John says, well, pain is the only motivator. I've actually got him to change his stance. He says, Glenn, I'm open to you. He's not saying I'm right, but he is, I'm open to your thinking, right? That greed is a motivator also, right? This world runs on greed, right? There's people get out of bed in the morning because they want to make money because they're greedy. And I mean, that's not necessarily a good thing, right? But I came to AA and I surrendered in 2014 because of pain. Somewhere along the way, I wish I wrote a journal, a diary or a journal. Somewhere along the way, I keep this up. I don't do this shit today because I'm trying to avoid the pain. Trust me, I know the pain's there. And it's only an arm's length away or a bottle away. I was sharing that this week at a meeting. But I keep coming back and doing all this stuff, just like we talked about with renewing your contract.
Right.
I mean, you have an amazing life. I watch your life from the bleachers, and I'm so proud of you and the stuff and the engagement that you do.
It's a miracle.
Right. But you don't spend all day focused on the 15%.
No, right. No
your
way.
life would suck.
Yeah, right.
And so what this guy does from our church group, he focuses on the
15%.
And maybe in his life, 30 good, 70 bad. I don't know the exact, right?
He's just focusing on the wrong element.
Exactly. And he's expecting the alligator to fly. And it just will never, ever fly.
Right.
So you either A, shoot the alligator.
Wow.
Figuratively.
We're going to some kind of jail there.
No, I mean, you just get out of the situation, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's driving you, I mean, but what I also know about that is the grass is never, ever greener.
Yep.
Every time I thought the grass was greener, trust me, it's not.
That's right.
So I've learned that. So I know for me, in the 5 minutes, because this is where my head goes. I'm all or nothing, right? You know me well enough, right? And so in 5 minutes, I can go from a great loving relationship with Jen to, oh my God, she didn't serve my coffee. I mean, I can take that if I allow myself to go 20 minutes in my head, I'm like, I'll bet there's a woman out there that would make me coffee.
Right, sure. That's where to get to.
I swear.
Yeah.
That I have gone there.
Yeah.
Or whatever the situation is.
Right.
I'll bet there's a woman out there that's grateful that, and I have to watch. I have some funny jokes, but I have to watch what I say because there's folks out there with all kinds of situations. But, I mean,
No, I get it. So answering my question, which you have, you are so self-aware, and you've mentioned that before. It's got to be about self-awareness because when you feel you're focusing on that 15%, you have to proactively flip that switch and say, hold on a second, right? And so this is what I'm hearing anyway. It's become like a natural instinct for you. Don't go there because you don't want to end up at that place 19 minutes away.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I try to coach, part of what we do is share our experience, strength, and hope with others, right? And
all we know is what we know.
Yeah, and like this dude, man, I love him, but he's in a similar situation. He's been for 5 years. I like to shake my head.
Right.
I'm like, how can you? I mean, you have all kinds of help all around you, right? And I almost feel I feel bad, But I mean, I'm telling you, I think the secret, and maybe if somebody's listening, they're like, well, mine's 30-70, right? I have 30% I like and 70% I just can't stand. Maybe it's the way you're looking at it.
Love it.
Really, maybe it's the lenses that you're looking at it, and I look at, and hey, Jen and I go through stuff, right? We are still navigating life as life comes to us, and there's all types of situations, and I'm telling you, man, it's self-awareness, it's expectations. I focus. I'm grateful for the 85%, I say prayers, I say, dude, help me with I call God dude. I'm like, dude, help me with my character defects. Help me with my ego. I know ego is a major thing. I can tell you stories, and I've shared some. My ego was so big in the past. I mean, it's probably, I don't know, 20% of what it was, 10% of what it was. It was ugly, right? And the stuff I used to do, it embarrasses me to even think about it, that I was that person, right? But I can feel it coming up, and I'm like, I'm working 14-hour days, 12-hour days. I deserve. Oh my God, that is fuel for, that's bullshit, and so I'm not sure if that's kind of what you were looking for, but
No, it's great stuff, man. I really, you framed it out a whole lot more clearly to me than it was before. I think I've got it this time.
Well,
like I said, I'm on the slow train, but I think I got it this time.
You're not on any slow train. You're on the bullet train. Well, how do you handle that?
You know what?
Because I know not everybody's 100% in your world.
And I got to tell you, it's as simple as
Nancy is.
It's the serenity prayer. Yes, it's the serenity prayer for me. Accept the things I cannot change.
That's a great tool.
That is that is my fallback when the guy cuts me off in traffic or she doesn't serve me up a cup of coffee in the morning. Accept the things I cannot change. Life. I mean, you went deeper, but that's my shallowistic view. I mean, I just can't change certain scenarios. I've got to accept that. Number one. Number two, in a word that's very similar, is my expectation. If I get out of bed expecting that I'm going to have a cup of coffee on the nightstand, then I've got a problem with my expectations because it hasn't happened in 42 years. I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow.
So let me break apart that serenity prayer for you.
Yeah.
So my feelings about changing words.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you change words,
Yep.
ego comes in. Like there's people in our rooms who say, well, the big book says this, but it really should say this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dude, you got a problem. I mean, the minute they say that, I'm like, you have a character defect, right? You have not surrendered to your ego. You think you know better than that magical book
That's changed millions of people's lives.
You think you know better? Sit down and listen, right? But as soon as I say that, and I really feel strongly about that, but the serenity prayer, I'm going to give you some examples.
Mm-hmm.
I add 2 words to it for me.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change.
Right.
The courage to change the things I can
Yes.
and should.
Oh.
And should is what I've added. And the wisdom to know the difference. Sorry, man, I got early morning throat here this morning. So, meaning, right, the coffee situation. Me, I have the power. So, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. The courage to change the things I can. I can change a lot of fucking things in this world.
Oh, sure. You could demand that coffee be on the nightstand.
Absolutely. That's exactly where I was going. Right? I have the power and the assertiveness to change a lot of shit in my world. Mm-hmm. But should I?
I love that.
Right? So that's the only 2 words I have changed for me. I think they changed for the better because it reminds me I could sit there and in one sentence have coffee in my bedside
Sure.
at 5 o'clock every morning.
Right. You might have to pay a service, but you'd get your coffee.
Dude, you are absolutely miraculous. You're right. And it could come to that. But I have the courage to change things. Mm-hmm. I don't, that's not my issue.
Okay.
It's should I? Mm-hmm. And what I've learned in driving situations, look, that is 0 on my issue list today. I know a lot of people drive 0 because you know what? I just don't care. Go in front of me.
Right.
I actually, is proactively, I just wave everybody on.
Oh, pisses Nancy off.
Yeah, I just wave everybody on.
She's like, seriously.
What are you sitting for? I'm like,
no.
I could care less.
No.
I'm not going
Right.
to, I'm not going to, I told you the story about the cop, right?
Yeah, right.
I mean, that was
Race
a rarity,
him, yeah, right.
That was a rarity. So, hey, I am okay being on the B team. Yeah. I'm okay being on the C team. I'm okay riding the back of the bus. Whatever word you want to use, life is better that way.
Right.
And it doesn't always have to be my way. I am learning. It blows me away. I'm not always right.
Right.
It just blows me away.
Yeah.
So there's better ways. So I just,
I don't think you changed the words of the serenity prayer. I think you
augmented them.
You augmented them, right? Exactly. You added on 2 really key words.
Because I can affect change.
Yes, absolutely.
But should I?
Yeah, love it.
Should I just let it be? Mm-hmm. And what I found is life is still, when the more I let it be, life is peaceful. And I'm amazed at how many times it turns out better than if I had forced that nail down that hole. It's just amazing, brother.
And can I tell you, this has turned out a lot better than I thought it was going to turn out based on the beginning of our conversation about should we be doing this? Should we not be doing this?
No, don't you dare use the word we. You said should I.
I think it's time for a break. Brian, take us out, Brian.
Look at Brian laughing. Love you, brother.
Thanks for joining us for today's coffee chat. To contact the show, email us at podcast@Sober.Coffee. If you need immediate help, the AA hotline is 800-839-1686. The National Suicide Prevention Hotline is 800-273-8255. Remember, Mike and Glenn are sharing their own journey on the path to recovery. Any suggestions, medical or otherwise, are their own experiences and should not be viewed as professional advice. See you next week, and remember, there is a solution.